Beis. It's about halfway. It's in almost the middle of the page. Maishna, middle above the middle of the page. Maishna Mechavis.
Okay, so B2. And it's the last paragraph on the English right over here on the right. You showing it then? Okay, no, I'm talking to.
Yeah, I think we went up to there yesterday. Yeah. Yeah. No, we were a little bit further. We went to.
Okay, so
up to the wine comparison.
We learned in the Mishnah that there's Machlekes Shammai and Hillel about Metamel and Mafreya. If we go back and we say that something is Tameh, we find Tumah now. The woman finds Tumah now. Hillel said that you assume that she was Tameh before as well. How does she become Tameh? Because of blood of Nidda. So Hillel says that you have to 24, even more than 24 hours. The Chum say 24 hours. Hillel says you go back till the last time you check. And Shammai said no, that when she finds the blood, that's when she's Tameh only on. It's not relevant for halacha. It's not relevant nowadays. It has nothing to do with now. It only has to do with tumah and tara. In temple times, when someone would eat food, he had to make sure that he kept it pure, certain food. So it could be that she touched food yesterday or earlier today, and that food would become impure. It's not relevant for now. It's a discussion about chazaka.
Here Beshama is a mekel.
Here Beshama is mekel. Surprisingly, mekel. Yes. So the Gemara asked the question, what's the reason for Beis Shammai? We gave one answer. We said the reason for Beis Shammai is because of a chazaka. That the woman has a chazaka that she was tahar. So we asked the question, so what about a mikveh? A mikveh that used to be full, and now you measured it and it's not full. And in the interim, you've toivel things in that mikveh. Do we say that those things wasn't a good mikveh and those things are still tamei? Or do you say that it was a good mikveh? It's in the interim. It was full at one point and now it's not. So what was the status in the middle? So over there we said that we consider it tamei. Everything that was put in that mikveh is tamei. So 1 second, the mikveh also has a chazaka. By the woman you said she has a chazaka and she's tahar. The mikveh had a chazaka also. And you said that it was, and you're saying that the mikveh didn't work. You're saying that everything's tummy. So you're not going by chazaka. So Gemara answered that tarti l'reyasa. There's two issues. There's two problems. By the woman, what was she touching? Food that was pure. And now we're saying that now she's tummy. So the food had a chazaka, and she had a chazaka. Her chazaka right now is not great, but because she's tummy right now, that's an issue. But at least the food had a full chazaka that food was tahar. So we keep it at that status. By the mikveh, we had a keli that was tamei. And we have a mikveh that has a chazaka that it was kosher. But the chazaka that is kosher is not a great chazaka, because right now we see that it's missing. It's not a good mikveh. So what do? We have the chazaka of the vessel that was tamei. So we leave the chazaka of the vessel, and it's sort of like the chazaka of the mikveh just falls off, and we leave it on the chazaka of the vessel, that the vessel was tamei. That's the difference between the nidda and the mikveh. By the nidda the food is tar, and by the mikveh the food was the vessel is tamei, and therefore all the food that was in those vessels also becomes tamei and all of that.
Why don't we just go based on those when you're reading the Torah, and you find it puzzle, it became puzzle that second, not before. Why not the same thing?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Who's giving trophies? I don't think the laws of Puzzle are
I only asked because he's not here.
That's a good point. I have to think about it. Maishna Mechavis. It's a good question.
All the people before don't have to lay no.
You don't have to go back.
No, because there's no missing the
He's calling me here, but I'm on the other end.
I understand, but I don't know. We're going to see later. There's going to be issues with the Rabbanan.
I just know that he's not.
I don't know if the strength of a chazak, it could be that it won't matter in the strength of chazak. Okay, now we ask a new question. What's the difference about a barrel? This is where we're starting. The Tanan. Let's start in the Mishnah. Someone is examining a barrel of wine to see if the wine is good. You hear nothing. He's smelling, tasting the wine to see if it's good. Why does he need the wine to be good? Because he's going to take truma. Good morning. He's going to take truma from this wine that he's tasting right now. He's going to take truma from this barrel. He's going to separate truma. And now truma is allowed to be separated by machshava. It's machlekes if it gets the holiness b'machshava, but it definitely allows you b'machshava that you're allowed to eat the other foods. What was the word? To assign it. Yeah. It's actually machlekes between the Rebbe and his father. If the machshava actually makes it into holiness. The Rebbe held yes. His father said no, and they have the letters over there. Now, the Rebbe has a raya from Rashi, and his father said you didn't understand Rashi. There's a Shara Melech that explains it different, and it's all based on a question in Kuti Torah or something. So I have a barrel of wine. He's tasting it to see if it's good, and it's good. Then he goes away, and he drinks his other wine. And sometime during that time, he separated the truma to be able to drink his other wine. When he goes back to look at that wine, to give it to the kohen or to whatever, he sees that it's vinegar. So, lias mafshler truma v'haylech. And he goes away, and he finds that the wine turned into vinegar. Now there's a problem over here. There's a machlekes. You can take vinegar as truma and wine. And according to the Rabbanan, it's machlekes Rebbe and the Rabbanan. According to the Rabbanan, you can't use vinegar as truma for wine. You can't be toirim in a ra la yafa. You can't take vinegar as truma to give that to the kohen, and then your wine is good. So how does it work? So it says kol gimel yamim. Skip the word rishonim. Kol gimel yamim vadai. The first 3 days after he tasted it and smelt it, it's for sure still wine. It doesn't go bad like that. Mikan ve'elach suffik, but after 3 days it's a suffik if it's good. Okay, now it had a chazaka that it was wine. It had a chazaka, you knew it was wine, it was good. And if he took truma after 3 days after he tasted it, it's a suffik if that's considered truma. We should have a chazaka just like by the woman according to Shammai. Shava chazaka, and that it's good until the very last end, until right now. Until right now, it just turned into vinegar, just like by the woman. She became tummy right now. She's not tummy from before. It's a kasha l'shamai. It's a question on Shammai. Now I skipped the word Rishonim because there's a machlekes between Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Shua ben Levi how to read that Mishnah. One pshat is we learned at Kol Gimel Yom Rishon that it was. Kol Gimel Yamim, all the days, originally it was wine. All the first 3 days it's for sure wine, and after that it's a suffix. That's the way Rabbi Yechanan learns. Rabbi Shua ben Levi learns it like this. He says the last 3 days it's for sure vinegar, and before that it's a suffix. What's the vadai? The vadai is wine on the first 3 days of after checking, or the vadai is the wine, vadai vinegar of the over back, the last 3 days, 3 days back, and then before that is a suffix. So either way, there's a suffix over here, and that's a problem. Shammai didn't have any suffix. Shammai said it was 100%. The Gemara says, "Hasim shem diklameimer hemet tevel al chaskasei." No, Vadir, what are you trying to do? You're trying
that's still good.
You're trying to take truma on something that's tevel. Tevel means the truma wasn't taken yet. The gifts to the kohen weren't given. So you're trying to say that the truma was good, and that should be not tevel, but that has a chazaka. The other wine has a chazaka that it is tevel. So ve'ema leinasakin. What we're going to do is we're going to say that tevel is still tevel. It remains in its status. The Gemara says, 1 second, Adrabah. Hamed yayin al chaskasi. Why are you taking the status of the tevel? Take the status of the wine. The wine was always good. Ve'emalei hechmitz, and say it never became vinegar. The Gemara says, 1 second, harei hechmitz lefanecha. Hechmitz lefanecha. You see it's vinegar. That's not a good. The Gemara says, achanami harei dam lefanecha. So what's our issue? You're trying to compare it to the woman, and to say that that case is very different because over there we're going to use a chazaka that we're going to use a chazaka over there. We can't use the chazaka of the wine because you see it's vinegar. So by the woman also, it's exactly the same thing. So it is parallel, these two cases.
I don't understand something. It says kasha l'shamai.
Yeah, right.
Why can't Shammai just say, argue with that Mishnah? Big deal.
We've had that before.
What's the big deal? So Shammai argues with another Tana. It's okay, big deal. It's not from the Torah. A kasha l'shamai would be something from the Torah. Something in the Torah. He can't go against the pasuk or limud from the Torah. What is he going to do with that limud? But here it's just another Tanan. So it's another Tana. So he says, argue on the Tana.
I think it means that over there it's unanimous agreement that that's the halacha.
Who says so? He's saying it's not. I mean, just...
So you open up another...
It's not a kasha. So what... So you could say, so what does Shammai say? Does he agree with that Tana or he disagrees? But why is it a kasha?
No, because maybe it's therefore it's going to.
The only time you could have a kasha and a Tana is from a Torah. If it's a pasuk from the Torah, there's a limud. So what are you going to do with this pasuk?
Now it can't to therefore state that. Therefore, you're by what you're saying, you're proclaiming that Shammai disagrees with this, and therefore he holds.
So it's not a kasha. It's not a kasha. It's not a kasha.
There's a rule.
It's a clarification.
He's never commented on this before.
There's a rule that lafushe machlekes.
Right. For
We don't want to increase machlekes. We don't want to say that there's also a machlekes about this.
But is that a kasha?
It's so strong that lafushe machlekes that we're ready to start off. If we're going to be pushed against the wall and we're going to say we don't have a teretz, we might say that Shammai argues. And actually, we're going to do something similar.
So any kind of machlekes is a kasha.
But if we didn't know that there's a machlekes, and we're going to have to claim that there's a machlekes. So that's enough to say. Let's find another way.
There was no way to say that Shammai was arguing.
Here, you're taking the hira out of it. So the Gemara now says, 1 second, hashtahu de chazai. By the woman, you just saw the blood now. But by the vinegar, something's different. It was already vinegar before. So 1 second. Hasam nami hashtahu de hechmetz. By the vinegar also, you just found that it was vinegar. It says hachi hashta. Hasam mikalameimar. Over there, you can say hechmetz vasa. It turns vinegar slowly. It doesn't go from wine to vinegar in a second. Right? You open the bottle and immediately it turns into vinegar with the oxygen. It takes a little bit of time. It says, by the woman, do you say that she saw blood slowly? No, she sees the blood and that's it. The Gemara says, my kusha. That's not a real question because Dilma Hagas Chazisi. Maybe she did see the blood slowly and it filled up and then it fell because it says that she becomes tamei once it leaves the uterus, but even before it leaves her body. So it could be that it filled up and then it piled up and then it fell out after. So it could be Hagas Chazisi that it increased, and then it came out. So we're back to a parallel between the woman and the wine. If that's the case, so then why is the din different? According to Shammai, by the woman it was tar lemafreya, and by the wine lemafreya retroactive, it's considered vinegar. So the same answer that we said before. That over there I have a cheskas tevel. By the wine, I have my other items have a chazaka that they are tevel. You're trying to change the status of all your other wine by saying that this was truma. You can't change that status unless you are for sure that this is truma. Now, by the woman, you have the cheskas tar over there. You're trying to change that status on those items, the cheskas tar on the food that she was touching. You can't change that status unless you know that she was really tummy. So that's the tartil reisa. So what works out is I have two cases that are parallel. Mikveh and the wine. The mikveh and the wine are parallel, where I don't go lemafreya. I don't go back. Sorry. By the mikveh and the chavis, I say that the not good state that it's in right now does go back. Those cases are parallel. Why do I do that? Because you're trying to change the status on something else. On either the kalim that were tamei or the tevel You're trying to change that, so I do go lemafreya. And why do I do that? Because of the tarti l'reyasa. And by the woman, I don't. So now the Gemara asks this: V'rami chaves amikva. We asked. We have. We have the barrel of wine. We have the mikveh, and we have the woman. We asked each one independently on the case of the woman, where the woman was daya shaita. She was only tamei from then on. And by the mikveh, we said it's definitely tamei. The kalim are still definitely tamei. And in this case, we said that it's a suffix. And both of them we asked on Shammai that says definitely tar. Now we're going to compare the chavis to the mikveh, where this is definitely tamei and this is a suffix if it's vinegar. So maishnahacha, what's the difference here by the mikveh? The vadai, where the kalim are definitely tamei, but maishnahacha, what's the difference here by the barrel that it's a suffix? Rab Chanina Misura gives us a teretz. I don't know where he is on the chart. Mantan Chaves, who's the author of Chaves? Reb Shimon. It's really Reb Shimon. That Mishnah is really a separate opinion, and that's why he holds that it's only a suffix. The Lagabi Mikveh Nami Sveika Mashvala. That even in the case of Mikveh, he also argues over there, and he also says that it's a suffix instead of saying that it's a vada. He did Tanan as was taught in the Mishnah. Mikveh shenimdad, if you measure a mikveh, v'nimtza chaser, and you find that it's missing, and before you measured it and it was 40 sa. Perfect. Now you measure it again, and it's 39 sa. So, kol hataras shenasu al gab of l'mafreya, all the taras were down here. All the taras that were done retroactively, back when I go back to before I found that it was missing. Bein b'shas harabim, bein b'shas yachid tmeyas. We said, that's the Mishnah we quoted, that it's definitely tamei. Nothing more.
What's the difference? There's
a rule that by a saita it says that she's tamei. It says the word tuma by a saita. And where does a saita consider tamei? A saita is the woman that her husband told her, don't be secluded with so and so, and she is secluded with him. So if it's a seclusion, that means rishus hayachid. It's a private domain. It's a so then she's tamei. What does it mean tamei? She's forbidden to her husband. She's forbidden to her husband. That's what it means. And if even with we don't know what happened. We just know that the door closed. We don't know what happened. But she was warned. So if it's a private domain, and the door closed, so then she's tamei. Now that's a suffix, but nevertheless the rule is that she's tamei. She's forbidden to her husband. If it was a public area, which means there was no seclusion, so then she's tar. So what we're saying here is there's a rule. Suffix tumah b'shus hayachid is tamei. We learned from Saita that suffix tumah and rishus hayachid is tamei. Suffix tumah b'shus harabim is tar. So.
But that rule has nothing to do with Saita. It's a general rule.
That's a rule that we learn it from Saita, and from Saita we learn it to all Hilchos Tumah and Tara.
Oh,
yeah. So that's a rule. If you find if it's something that it's suffix if you touch the sheretz, it depends where. If it's in Rishus Harabim or Rishus Hayachid, it's going to make a difference. Now, one of the places we wanted to say that if a woman becomes a nida, it makes a difference. But the truth is that that's only nida has two halachas. It has hilchas tuma and it has also iser. That's why.
So here we're only talking about hilchas tuma.
This is just hilchas tuma, not iser. One of the achrayim wanted to say that the isurim, made the prohibitions of nida, are a outcome of the tuma. And so if you don't have the tumah, maybe you don't, like what's based on what? What's based on, but anyway, la halacha, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry.
I don't know, you may have just answered the question I have, but this is the question. As I understand the structure of what Gemara is doing now, it's never questioning the need to make some kind of a presumption about a woman's status. It's bringing down other cases to test which is a proper presumption and how far back does it go, and so forth. And they're saying, well, this is not a good analogy, and that's not a good analogy. My question as I was reading through this is a lot of them seem to me an odd fit to test against a woman's anatomy. So my question was, why there's so many hundreds of presumptions in halacha? Why did the Gemara or the editors choose these particular ones to try to understand the halacha here? And maybe you just answered it when you said, well, these are the standard. This is the most important one in Tahara and Tuma, what we learned from Sota.
We learned from Saita.
Which seemed to me a particularly odd situation to compare.
I don't know if that's enough of a... you see, we're dealing with Tumah. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with Tumah. It's not the woman's anatomy that we're discussing. We're discussing Tumah. And are you machzik to... Yes, the anatomy is going to make a difference, but the main thing here is Tumah, impurity. We're just going through random cases of impurity. Now, it could be that there's something specific about this, and it could be that we could have asked, or it could be that we could have asked from other things as well. We just happened to ask from this, just as a start. I don't know, but when we answer it, we'd probably have answered the other issues as well. Now, that's the first opinion of the Rabbanan. Reb Shimon Aimer, B'shus harabim tahiris, b'shus hayachid tailin. You see, Reb Shimon holds that there's a suffix. Reb Shimon holds even by the mikveh it was a suffix. So when we discussed, by the barrel it was a suffix. By the woman, we said it was definitely tar. By the mikveh, it was definitely tameh. Actually, by the mikveh, it's also a suffix. So therefore, who's the one that taught chavis? Was Reb Shimon. He would hold by mikveh also that it's a suffix as well. We've resolved all our issues, seemingly. If you think about it, what does he hold? B'shus harabim. We have a lot of issues here that we need to deal with. A lot of loose ends. Let's see. We say, we're on top of Gimel, the Rabbanan and Reb Shimon learned from a Saita. Let's see. Rabbanan Savri, the Rabbanan hold ki Saita, that it's like a Saita. Ma Saita Safiki Vasu Kavadai. A Saita,
the general idea of the Saita
is, we don't know what she did with this man in the room. We don't know. We just know that the door was closed. What's the halacha? The halacha is that she's 100% forbidden to her husband. So, Hachanami Safik Basul Kavadi. Here also, we don't know what the status was with this mikveh, but we know that those things were...
This is Reb Shimon Bar Yochai.
Yeah.
So halacha is like him.
No, usually not.
No, not in this
Usually
case.
not. Yeah, well, usually the halacha is not. It's actually a very interesting issue over here, because you bring up a great point. The Rambam paskins like the Rabbanan by mikveh shenimda that it's definitely tamei, and he paskins by the chavis like Reb Shimon. So if Reb Shimon really argues on the case of mikveh, so the Rambam should have been coordinating the psak, because our Gemara says that Reb Shimon argues on that.
Right.
So the Chassam Sofer discusses this contradiction in the Rambam. Okay, good point. So the Rabbanan say it's definitely tamei, and we learn from Saita, because the Saita is definitely tamei. Now there's two issues here with this, because first of all, that would only be b'shus hayachid. And that's the main issue. The main issue is that's only... Okay, so the Gemara asks that question. The Gemara says, Imi Saita, if the Rabbanan are really learning from Saita, say Imaki Saita, so follow through all the way. Ma Saita b'shus harabim tar, rachanam b'shus harabim tar. We didn't make a difference where the mikveh was. It was Rishus Yachid, Rishus Harabim. If the Rabbanan really learned from Saita, they should have been Machalik. They said Rishus Yachid is Tamei and Rishus Harabim it's Tar. Gemara says, Hachi Hashta, hold it. Hasam Yishum Stirahu. Over there's a special reason why Rishus Yachid is Tamei and Rishus Harabim is Tar. The Stira B'Shus Harabim Leka. There's no, it's an impossibility to have Stira B'Shus Harabim. And so therefore, that's why it's tahar. But stira means seclusion. But hacha here, mishum chaserhu, mali chaser b'shus harab, mali chaser b'shus hayachid. Sounds like the Gemara here is accepting that really the rule is safek tuma is tamei. is tummy. In Rosh Hashanah, it's impossible to have stira, so that's why we don't. We say by a saita that it's tahar, but that's only because stira in Rosh Hashanah, seclusion in public property, public area, is
But if the whole foundation of
self-contradictory.
learning that rule comes from Saita, then the whole foundation is rocky.
100%. 100%. I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
100%. There's a real issue. So that's what it seems like. It seems like that the main rule that we learned from Saita would be the Rosh Hashanah aspect. Don't worry.
Do you know what it just said? It said there's motion at your front door.
Yeah, that's good. My son's on the way to the airport. His timing is good.
Sorry.
Okay, so now we wanted to learn. We said that the Rabbanan are learning from Saita. The only problem is that it doesn't fit with Rosh Hashanah. It should be tar. So we say no, it doesn't. The Saita is a special case why Rosh Hashanah is tahar. But here we don't have that issue, and we're going to say it's tamei as well, even Rosh Hashanah, even public area. Gemara says v'chitema hakol safik tamei Rosh Hashanah tar. 1 second. Kol safik tamei Rosh Hashanah is. It's always like that. That's the rule. It's not. We took from Saita the rule. We made it a rule. We apply it to everywhere. Gemara says kivin de katarti l'reyes kavadai tuma dami. No. This Tosfos adds in a point over here that clarifies it. Chaim mentioned this before. What the Gemara does right now is the Gemara says it's so different than Saita. Saita is a suffix. The door closed, we don't know what happened. And in a suffix, Rosh Hashanah, we say Tamei. Over here, the Chazaka is a Tarti L'Reisa. I have a problem with the mikveh. I don't know what it was yesterday. And I also have kalim that are...
So it's two things that are...
And I have kalim that are tamei. Tarti l'reisa. That's considered a vadai. So Tosfos says, so then why you just say that they learn from Saita? So he says, no, they're not learning from Saita. They're explaining why Saita isn't a question on them. But the actual limit is not from Saita. That's the way that he learns it over here.
I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but Saita and Rosh Hashanah doesn't even exist.
Right.
You can't even say that this was a Saita because there was no seclusion.
There's nothing.
So it's not like there was Saita and Rosh Hashanah is Alto or it's not Chaya.
That's the first step of the Gemara. That's the first step that the Gemara wanted to do. But then the Gemara said, but even so, we still learned the rule out of that kol safek tumah b'shus rabim istar.
That's the problem with using, to my mind, the problem with using sota is it's not a logical presumption. That's why the Torah needs to come and tell us.
But what suffix do you have in Rosh Hashanah?
So let me tell you like this.
You don't.
Right.
There isn't. That's why it's
1 second. Yeah, that's why.
That's exactly it.
Well,
There isn't a suffix. We're proving from
But
Saita
in
that there
other
isn't.
in Tumah and Torah, there is fakus in Rosh Hashanah.
Right. In other words,
the first
with sota, it's just it would never stand up to the rules of evidence in
Right.
halakha. What's done with a sota under this circumstance?
There's a machlekes Rashi and Tosfos on the first page. If Saita is halach l'Moshe Sinai, or if it has to do with the svara. This Rashi, Kigain Safik Lainaga, that for the bottom Rashi, he says that that's a halach l'Moshe Sinai. And the Tosfos here says no. Tosfos says that it has to do with the chazaka.
You got it. Just for coming. Look at this guy.
Okay.
Take a picture.
For Reb Shimon Sava, what does Reb Shimon hold? We said Shneim Lelam Dilam Saita. Reb Shimon holds Ki Saita Ma Saita B'Shus Rabin Tar. Look, he immediately grabs the other side. It says Reb Shimon holds B'Shus Rabin is Tar by a Saita Chanam B'Shus Rabin Tar. So 1 second. There's a loose end that you're not looking at over here. It says Me Saita Ema Ki Saita. So follow through all the way. Ma Saita B'Shus Hayachid Tmei Avadei Chanam B'Shus Hayachid Tmei Avadei. Reb Shimon says Toilen. That if the mikveh was in a Rosh Hashanah, he says, then we have a doubt. He doesn't say that it's Tamei Vadai. He says it's a suffix. Achi hashta. 1 second. Hasam yesh raglayim ledavar. Over there by the site, there's reason to believe that she's guilty. Why? Sharekina lavanistera. Because he warned her and she was secluded. So there's proof. There's reason to suspect that she's really, the husband even warned her once, don't, so hacham my reglaim l'dav, but over here, what is there, what's the reason to suspect that it was really tamei, that it was really a mikvah chaser beforehand? We only know from now. So yes, it's b'shus hayachid, but we only take it back to a suffix, not back to a vadai like we do by a saita. Ibayasema, another answer. Hainu taima de Reb Shimon, Gomar seif tuma mitchilas tuma. Matchilas tuma suffix naga suffix lay naga, b'shus rabin tar. Af seif tuma suffix tavel suffix lay tavel b'shus rabin tar. Let me explain like this. There's a difference between, this is the Rosh Yeshiva would talk like this. There's a difference between, we learned from Saita that a suffix tuma is tamei, b'shus hayachid. But we don't learn a suffix tara. By the mikveh, the suffix, that's not a suffix tuma, that's a suffix tara. So we can only learn the suffix tuma. That means, did the person touch the sheretz or did they not touch the sheretz? Is he tamei or not? So in b'shus hayachid we say tamei.
You can't say suffix.
But tara, to say that did the person go to the mikveh, did the keli get immersed in the mikveh, that I don't learn from Saita. That's, did it become pure? So I only have the first step, that's the real limit from Saita. Comes along Reb Shimon and says that I learn, tchilas tuma means becoming tamei, seif tuma means becoming tar. So Reb Shimon says no. I do a comparison between tchilas tuma, between becoming tamei, to the seif tuma, and I continue to learn from Saita. But it's not really a limit from Saita.